We're going to start first by opening the meeting. A motion to open?
I make a motion that we open the meeting for the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation for November 13th, 2013.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the November 13th, 2013 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation. My name is Curtis Highsmith, and I am your chair. We'll introduce our panel. We have Pam Hogue, Esther Pastor, Brian Brady, Christina Redding. We'd like to welcome our historic consultant, Zach Studenroll, our legal counsel, Bo Robinson, and as always, Antoinette, we thank you for freezing over there. We also apologize for the temperature in here. Unfortunately, it is a little cold, so we have to all bear it. We're going to start this evening's meeting with signs. The first application sign.
Mr. Chairman, CVS Pharmacy, 111 Main Street, storefront windows.
Your name for the record, sir.
It's Riccardo Cervini.
You can take that microphone out. Last meeting, you were going to show us the alterations.
Yes. So as discussed, those teardrops or the marshmallows were taken out. So this would be the new design. And then we also have the image with the superimposed signs on the storefront. These are a little blurry just because of the image, but this you could see, you get the idea of what it would look like.
Ham, no. That's
I
not.
can't help it.
Ham.
What do I pick up?
Ham. The CVS is already there?
CVS, yeah, these
No,
are
I meant the
existing.
decal that's on the actual window itself.
This right here?
Yes.
No,
So that's in addition to the back.
it's part of the vinyl, that's the graphics. This is what it looks like right now. So it has the spandrel glass, which is closed from the inside, right? And then here, and then these other ones.
Brian, any comments?
No, I like it.
Christine?
No, I like it without the teardrops.
Okay.
Snowdrops, whatever they were.
Esther?
I'm fine with it.
Ham?
It's appropriate.
Have no issue either. Is there any public comment on the application? Ham is dying to tell everyone that his truck is in the photo.
No, really. I wonder what my guy is doing there. What time of day was that?
What was that?
What time of day was that photograph taken?
I have no idea. Whose truck was that?
One of my guys.
One of your guys, really?
Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the storefront window application for CVS Pharmacy at 111 Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Concludes our sign applications for this evening. We are on to our historic applications for this evening. First application, due to the nature of the length of this application, I think we're going to push this the application for a little further back, just to be fair. A little further back in our agenda. Council, do you have any issue with that? Board members, do you have any issue with that?
Nope.
Okay. So we're going to start with our second application for historic.
Chairman, Nina Edwards, Philip and Nina Edwards, 395 First Neck. The guest house.
Hi, Stephen Rossetti, architect for Nina Edwards and Philip. Let's start off with this piece of property is 3.63 acres, and I have additional pictures.
This way, please.
The first picture up on the left is from this First Neck Lane looking in the driveway. You don't see any buildings from the street. Further up the driveway, you'll see the main house. Second picture on the right. And the bottom left is a right-of-way driveway that goes out to Great Plains. The other picture is a picture of the house. There's a garage on the property up the driveway. There's a cabana, pool, and the guest house that's going to be torn down which is in the wetlands, so we will restore the wetlands to what's acceptable. The new guest house is going to be in the far rear corner of the property. And per the drawings, you'll see that it's glass and cedar shingles, curved glass. The cedar shingles will be all natural, the trim will be natural, and we will be having lath on the building with wisteria growing on it.
This is a green building
Yes.
with growth on the top of it.
What's that?
Wisteria
Yes.
covering it.
Can this be seen from any right-of-way or purview?
Excuse me?
Can the house or the property be seen from any right-of-way or purview? Or
Will you see it?
public?
Can you
Yes.
see it from the street, Steve?
Not at all.
So it sits back, how far back?
It's at the rear. Do you have a survey?
I have a survey.
You can see that
For
it's
record, I'm trying to
the
get it.
furthest away from the street that you can get.
So it's passive energy structure?
Yes. So it's facing south, and it's also the furthest away we could get from the wetlands.
Right.
Zach, as we're assessing this, do you have any comments since it is in a historic district?
See the plan?
While he's reviewing it, Brian, do you have any comments?
No, I think it's really interesting. I think it's a great opportunity to do something like this, especially because of this lot being so far back and not being seen. And I just think it's a really cool idea.
Christine?
No, I agree. I think it's wonderful to see a real greenhouse being
Literally.
constructed.
So typically,
Place
it would
for
be
it
like
to
a
go.
greenhouse, yes.
I hope we see more.
Esther?
I'm in agreement.
Ham?
Beautiful.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Zach?
I agree.
Sits back. Not that that should be our only deciding factor, but whenever we can take a green initiative, it definitely would be a benefit both to the village and obviously to our environment. House is in a historic district. Seems you have the consensus of this board.
Right.
See if there's any public comment, and then we'll proceed. So, any public comment on the application? Please step forward.
Good evening, board members. Sally Spanberg. I just wanted to say, in 2010, the owners of this property got permission to demolish the main house, which is the original carriage house to Samuel L. Parrish's house, which is on the street, First Neck Lane. So it's terrific that they've chosen not to do that and are developing elsewhere on the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Just had one question. These guys have owned this house since before 2010, correct?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Been in the
Thank
family
you.
for years.
This is the daughter and son of
Right.
the parents.
Lucky.
Any other public comment? Okay, you have the consensus of this board, so we will empower council to prepare a written decision at
Okay.
our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn for written decision.
Make a motion that we adjourn the application of Philip and Nina Edwards for written decision by our council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next application, council?
275 Ox Pasture. It's a written decision, Mr. Chair, in front of you, original, and copies to the members.
And the decision approves the application as submitted in conformity with the consensus of the board, so an affirmative vote on the motion would be to approve the application.
Motion to approve council's written decision in approval of, 275 Ox Pasture Road.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by our council for the approval of 275 Ox Pasture LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, please.
Next application is Tony Costello, I'm sorry. Contolian, 328 North Main Street. Did I pronounce that correctly? The third time?
Yeah, it goes-
Contilo. Okay, thank you.
Your name for the record,
Hi,
sir.
my name is Greg Miller, and I'm representing Anthony Cantaleone at 328 North Main Street.
Is this the construct new, so you're looking for a, first and foremost, certificate of appropriateness to tear down the existing structure?
No,
No,
so
addition.
it's
Okay,
an
in addition.
addition.
Thanks.
So we're doing new roof, new siding.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
That isometric thing?
Yeah.
I think there's photographs in the file.
Yeah.
Actually making it look much better.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, this is recessed.
Yes.
All right, I get it. Okay, got it.
And it
So-
says right-
Brian, comments?
No, I think it's very appropriate. I actually think it helps balance the house a little bit more because it's very asymmetrical.
Pam?
It's good. It's very symmetrical. 2 over 2s. Matches up. It's good.
I agree.
Esther? Christine?
No, it's fine. Balances it out nicely.
Zach? Any public comment on the application? I don't know if you heard our last application, but the property is located in the historic district. Since you had the consensus of this board to move forward with an approval, so we will prepare that and have our council have that at our next meeting. Do you have any comments?
No, so this will have to go to one more meeting, or?
You have an approval, but it has to be officially, all applications in the historic district require a written decision. So we'll adjourn this evening, and then at our next meeting, you will have the written decision.
Very good.
Has to look
We'll
like
vote.
one of these guys.
We'll vote on it, and it becomes official.
Thank you.
Anything further? Motion to adjourn for written decision.
I make a motion that we adjourn the application of Anthony Contolian at 328 North Main Street. Was I wrong?
No.
For written decision by our council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, how do you pronounce
Fine, in our next application, I'm not gonna try.
Thank you.
Next
That
application.
pronunciation one more time, just for fun.
Monteleone.
Monte Leon?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next application, Captain's Neck Lane LLC, 301 Captain's Neck Lane.
You just gave me North
have
Main
it.
Street.
Is there a sign-in sheet?
You're presenting, so you're gonna let us know what your name is for the record?
Yep.
Ian Hamback with LaGuardia Design for the applicant, 301's Captain's Neck Lane LLC.
What is the spacing between the gaps?
Between the posts, 15 feet when open.
Okay, the spacing between the
Between the
lats.
spindles?
Yes.
Well, it's not marked on here, but that's 15.
Okay.
There's 1,
No
2,
ugly
3,
light.
4. Evenly, 7, about 3 inches.
3 inches?
Yep, 1-inch spindles.
Iron?
Yeah, well, it's steel.
Steel.
It's gonna be back there.
Do you want me to open it up?
Good spacing, I have no issue. Pillars, are there lanterns or anything lit?
Nope, there's gonna be a little plaque that's got the address on one of the columns, that's it.
Okay. Christine, comments?
No, I think these gates are lovely.
Esther?
Very handsome gates.
Brian?
They're good.
Pam?
Good, transparent, what we want.
No, good.
Okay.
Zach?
I'll be fine.
Any public comment on the application? And I'll repeat myself again. The property is located in the historic district, and even though it's a driveway gate, it still requires written decision. So we will have 3 decisions for our next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, do you need the receipts?
You can
Yes,
add it
you
to the
could
file.
s-
Yes, we do. If you could hand that in.
Yeah, so we only have one of the return, but we've got receipts that they were all signed. Or we're missing one.
Do you have the affidavit in the file, please?
The affidavit and mailing is in file. Motion to adjourn for written decision by council.
I make a motion that we adjourn the application of Captain's Neck LLC for written decision by our council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, did you make a copy of those before you've handed them in? Do you have a copy for your own records?
I don't.
Antoine, why don't you just give them back to him, and let's leave it at that. We have the affidavit in the file. I'm concerned that if those go into the file, that they'll be lost. So
Yeah, fair
you
enough.
should retain those for your own records.
Do you want me to make a copy, drop them off? in
If
the
you
morning?
want, that would be good if you wanted to do that.
We'll just do that.
Yeah.
Just for the record, that's
Retain the
not something
original.
that's common, that records are missing from files.
Retain the originals for your own self.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Chairman, do you want to go back to
we're
Hermer?
gonna go back to the, 51 Pond Lane.
Application of David and Sylvia Hermer, 51 Pond Lane, for demolition of existing dwelling, cottage, garage, swimming pool, shed, and the construction of a new two-story single-family dwelling. Mr. Chair, I
the
just
app-
wanted to ask one question before we start. The new dwelling, are we hearing that as well tonight? Has there been any changes on the
What do you mean by the
proposed
new
new
dwelling?
dwelling in this application?
Any changes to the new dwelling?
Yeah, have there been any
This-
changes to your
No,
application?
no new
for the
dwelling, and
dwelling?
this is for the demolition of the
Demolition
structure.
only?
They have not presented a plan for new construction as of yet.
So, but it's still bound with this application, is that correct?
At some point, yes.
No,
that's
well,
I see.
we'll have to
Okay.
come
So
back
we
for
haven't
that.
even looked at.
Yeah, we're looking for the
just for the
demolition
record.
first, and then we'll come back at a different application
I see.
time.
Okay.
So if we could bifurcate those.
Just wanted to clarify.
David Gilmartin, Farrell Fritz, for the applicants and property owners. The risk of being repetitive from the last meeting, your jurisdiction in this case is limited to the exterior of the building. So says Chapter 65 of your village code. The only remnant of anything on the exterior from any prior structure or older structures are a rake board, which is a fascia or decorative installation on the outside. I have submitted a statement in support, and at exhibit number F, letter F, is a picture of the northern elevation. This is the rake board that is the only remnant from any prior structure existing on the outside. This is basically a house that is built in the 1920s and then added on going forward. For the board to deny this application over this removal of the fascia board, you must find that that removal would affect, and this is from your code, would affect the appearance and cohesiveness of the historic district in its entirety. I would submit to you that that's an impossible burden for you to overcome in this case. Your historic district and this property has been inspected at least 4 times for its historic value. One in 1979 by the Department of Interior. In 1999, this historic district was looked at by this village. And in 2013, your own expert has looked at this structure. Again, the only thing that remains is that decorative fascia board. It has no substance, it's not holding anything up, it's purely decorative. Simply put, this argument that's been going on should have happened in the 1920s, because that's when this house changed from whatever it was beforehand. So it is not the house that it's being presented at by people in opposition. There is a very, very little portion on the exterior left of this. I submit to you what you are being asked to do by the opposition to this application is to landmark a piece of property. And under your code, you do not have the jurisdiction to do that.
I'm sorry, you say under our code we'd have the
Jurisdiction to
landmark?
landmark a piece of land.
Okay.
That's what I believe you are being asked, because the lack of any historical or architectural integrity to this building. Again, it's just that piece of fascia board that remains.
Counsel? I'm just questioning.
No comment.
Okay.
If it is the board's wish,
David, you're only speaking of the primary house, not the secondary other structures on this property, is that correct?
that's correct. The other structures were built after the 1920s. If it's this board's wish, my client will include that fascia board in the property as part of its redevelopment. That's pretty much all we have to say, and I think it's clear. Any evidence that's presented to this board that has anything to do with the interior or anything other than this fascia board is not germane to this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure there are rebuttals, so any public comment? Please step forward.
How's everybody?
Hi.
Brenda Simmons. I'm representing the chair of the African American Museum. And first I want to make a comment. I really admire how you conduct your meetings. And I had to say that, and there's a reason. But anyway, I come before you regarding another portion of the local law that you do have jurisdiction over, and that's Section 65.3. And Section 65.3 in the Historic and Landmark Preservation states, possesses special character or historic or aesthetic interest or value as part of the cultural, political, economic, or social history of the locality, region, state, or nation. Is identified with historical passage, meaning the celebrity or public figure or dignitary. And there's precedence that was set. This was actually in December 14, 2010, when our museum was historically landmarked by a board with the same 65.3, Section 65.3. And so what I intend to do tonight is to proceed with the same process that we had to do, was to show or to prove that this gentleman had some kind of significance or some kind of historical celebrity, or we'll say. So the first thing you'll see in your packet is
What packet are you referring to?
This is the packet that I given to you with that.
We just received this
We
evening,
Just
correct?
received it about
Okay.
40 minutes ago.
So would you mind turning the page and looking at it as I go through it? Is that okay?
Okay.
3 minutes.
Pardon?
You take it per time, so I don't want you to proceed.
It's just it'll be easy to do this. So just go take page by page. It's very simple. The first very obvious show that this guy is significant is the plaque or the rock that's right outside his house, in front of his house. And the inscription reads, born a slave in 1814, gained his freedom at age 18, sailed with MacArthur Cooper on first American ship to go to Japan, operated a ferry on Lake Agawam for 50 years, died in 1897, a respected citizen and member of the Presbyterian Church, leaving a legacy aiding their children's fund. And it says on the inscription across the street on the rock, it says, lived across Pond Lane from this location where a house still exists. The anchor found near his old rock was from the ferry boat. If you look at the next, is I found, it says notes from the Halsey Hilson Genealogy Project. And this was information that was actually printed in 1931. Again, I'm just going by Section 65.3, proving that this guy had an historical interest and a value and cultural and social history. Our attention has been called to a copy of the Seaside Times in 1897, in which we find an article from the pen of historian William S. Peltro entitled Pierce. We find an interesting reminder of events which have made history in our community, as well as a pleasant reminder of one who thought of humble station, enjoyed in regards and respect to all who knew him. If you just turn the page, I'm going to turn the page. You see the other highlighted part. It says, at the time of the excitement caused by the discovery of gold in California in 1849, Pierce was one of the crew who worked his passage in San Francisco in the good ship Sabrina, carrying 83 men from eastern Long Island, Southampton, Bridgehampton, East Hampton, Sag Harbor, sailing around Cape Horn and the gold fields of California. And the other green part that you see, and all this is just signifying the history that this gentleman has. Mr. French once told the writer that Pierce Concert was one of the few men he had known who never did anything to be ashamed of, and that he never heard from his lips any word or expression that would bring a blush to the cheeks of modesty. Upon occasions when Pierce was a witness to a suit in Riverhead and applied for a room at the hotel, an uppish clerk refusing in an unpleasant manner with the pretense of all full, was speedily brought to his sense when Mr. French exclaimed in a tone that commanded instant attention, "Put him in my room." Again, this might sound a little repetitive or what it may be, but I'm making a point here, and I think you're understanding my point. Also, Mr. Peltro, tribute. We may add that after many years spent on the seas, Cyrus and his good wife, Rachel, made their home in a little cottage still standing near the head of Lake Agawam, just opposite on the lake, with the tiny wharf of the deck, a tiny wharf or deck from which he sailed his boat up and down the lake to the bathing beach for a 10-cent fare, children half price. There were few cottages along the lake at the time, but there were several boarding houses in the village, and there were a few villagers who would find the time to go to the beach, kept his ferry busy. The last one on this page was, in the southwest corner of our old north end burial ground, we find a stone placed there by his friend and next-door neighbor of the ox pasture, the Honorable Salem H. Wales, bearing his inscription, Pierce Concert, born March 17, 1814, died August 23, 1897. And on the description it says, though born a slave, he possessed those virtues without which should be kings or slaves. And the next thing you'll see is this wonderful, who a slave having this kind of tomb, he has to have some sort of significance in this village. The next page, really quickly, you can look at Ricardo Cooper's house. This is an excerpt from the 1994 ceremony they had regarding Pierce Concert. And I just want you to note that they have some indications of Mr. Jagger in this thing. And why I want to mention about Mr. Jagger is because I actually found some letters that he wrote back in the 1800s about his voyage in California. Again, Pierce Concert was a well-known man in this village and really throughout this country. And I just wanted to also show this. It says, Southampton men go mad for gold. He went on a gold rush. And I'm not going to read all of that, but I just want you to take the time, if you will, to look over that. But the point I want to make is that this Albert Jagger wrote letters. If you look on the second page, on board was Albert Jagger, whose letters, home chronicling the voyage and subsequent experience in California, were found many years later in the attic of Jagger's home. And I call the Japanese consulate because, as we know, he was involved with the Japanese consulate. And they might be involving themselves when we celebrate him next year, but they directed me to go to the Columbia University Library to find also references of Pierce Concert. So if you look on, I won't go through all of this, but if you look on the pages that I've highlighted, these are letters that Mr. Albert Jagger wrote back in 1849. And you will see where he referenced to Pierce in many occasions. If you look through there, you'll see, I'm not going to go to the whole thing, but just for your reference, he's mentioned several times back in 1849 in letters that Mr. Jagger wrote. Also, about 2 or 3 months ago, I took a trip to Nantucket and Sandwich. It was a personal little trip I took. And while I was there, Nantucket is a huge whaling place. And when I got back, it was a tour guide that I thought about, and I called her, and she directed me to call the research in Nantucket in the library. And I got a hold of this guy named Lincoln, and immediately he found this article. You see, the first Negro to enter Japan. I won't read that all, but I just want you to reference that as well. And then the last thing I want to read was when he was 18 years old, that's on the second page of this article, he made his first whaling voyage with Captain Edward Sayer. He made a number of other voyages and went to California in 1849 during the gold fever, but returned home after years absent, little richer in world's goods. He is now one of the living links to bind Southampton with the past. And the next one is just another article they sent me about McCarter Cooper, which I won't read, but that's just for the file. Winding this up, the other information I found is talking about historical reminders that was in Newsday on January 21st, 2008. And if you look on the second page, Pierce Constance is also mentioned in that as an historical reminder in Long Island. And I just want to end this by saying that this is a very uncomfortable application for everybody, and it's unfortunate. But the thing that I want to stress before I sit down is, in '79, as Mr. Gilmartin referenced to, had this been put on the records in '79, or '99, or 2003, we wouldn't be here, because I doubt if the applicant would have purchased the property. But so it was the village neglected to put this information on properly. And I think you guys have the opportunity to right or wrong. Thank you. And I want to deny the demolition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comment? Any additional public comment? You didn't do that.
Good evening to the members of the AARB Board. My name is Lucius Ware, President of the Eastern Long Island NAACP. You have just heard information of great significance in the history of the village of Southampton. You've heard about a person who certainly ranks among the very highest in historical importance of people from this village. A person born in slavery, won his freedom, and went on to do many historical things. You've heard a little bit about the ship Manhattan that was on one of those voyages in search of whales and whaling oil. When they went into the Sea of Japan, there were 2 people only who were allowed to get off that ship and make arrangements for fresh food supplies. One of them being a Cuffy from Shinnecock and, of course, Pierce Conser. Captain of that ship was Mercator Cooper, and we all know of the Cooper House right down the street. We also know that Pierce Conser left a foundation, still existing, 60 yards away, right at the First Presbyterian Church. Okay? This man was of such huge historical significance that the monument that you hear being talked about, which was erected about 20 years ago, was done in great haste because the people from a particular cultural society in Japan were coming to the United States. They wanted to see this most important man in the history of Japan and the United States and his residence here. People got into a frenzy. And that's how that hurried recognition occurred. Okay? Of personal interest, I happen to have been living with my family, with my
Just one more minute, by the way. 1 minute remaining.
With my father-in-law, Arthur P. Davis, who wrote The Black Diamond in the Queen's Tiara. The Black Diamond being that black man, the Queen's Tiara being the white sandy beaches of Long Island. Now, certainly, you who are sitting in your seats there have the opportunity to embrace this history and not let it be destroyed. even though people sitting in this audience of importance would say otherwise. So let it go. Next year, 2014, already the state of New York is recognizing Pierce Concert Day. In the year 2015, the 375th anniversary of the founding of Southampton, this man is to have great prominence, just as he has been in the other years of historical recognition. And I certainly request that and strongly recommend that you vote against the demolition of the Pierce Concert Homestead at 51 Pond Lane, and recommend that you instead designate it as a historic landmark within Southampton Village, so that it will be preserved for the benefit of future generations. The Pierce Concert Homestead survives as the only known structure within the village of Southampton associated with a previously enslaved family, is associated with persons of great significance, and represents a tremendous educational opportunity to Southampton Village, its residents, its children, and students to come, both architecturally and culturally, and as well as for the broader regional, state, and national audience. We talk about people coming to visit here. What are they coming to visit to? Something that's gone? Please deny the current application to demolish the main dwelling and designate it as a local landmark instead. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're. That's okay. Next, any further discussion? Is there any way I can turn this volume down?
I don't know.
This is.
It's somewhat distracting.
It's beyond. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, sir.
Good evening, board members. Sally Spanberg, village resident. I have several comments, and they're somewhat disjointed, so I apologize. I submitted, as promised, 2 days after the last meeting, a packet, which should be in your file. That packet, I'll give you the highlights. As I promised, I began researching adjacent properties, and I found 3 deeds showing Pierce Concert as the owner of the subject property in 1852, 1865, and 1881. So I think we can put that issue to rest. The question came up as owned versus lived in. The probate document submitted to you at the last meeting describes the subject property as his homestead. That proves that he lived there. A homestead is a place where you live. A person of significance, several people are talking about that tonight, so I won't go into that, but I did submit on October 25th the publication that Lucius just referred to, A Black Diamond in the Queen's Tiara, so you should have that also in your file, which helps to prove significance. Architectural merit. It's being argued that the building is not of architectural value. There's different ways to consider that. If you evaluate it based stylistically on architecture, obviously we're arguing based on research that it was probably built about 1839, which would put it in the Greek Revival style. There's not much of it left in the Greek Revival style, so it's not of merit because of its Greek Revival stylistics. It is of architectural value because of its historic association with Pyrrhus. It's not, we don't have a lot of architecture out here associated with African Americans to study, and therein lies its value as an educational opportunity for us. That north elevation that does just show a rake line, that's of value because it shows an original fragment of what the building would have looked like in the mid-19th century. So that rake line, although decorative now, alludes to a roof form which alludes to its Greek Revival style. Tonight, in the packet that Brenda submitted to you, is a New York Times article that talks about a property in Lawrence, New York, here on Long Island, that was recently archaeologically investigated, and they learned so much. It has a Georgian structure on the property, and it's been a museum for a long time, and it's been very popular because of its Georgian characteristics. But with this archaeological information that they've recently learned, the property has now gotten so much more important because of its association with slave families and the information they learned about the slaves that lived there. And so I've given you a copy of that article because that shows us how much more we could learn from this property. I also submitted 2 other letters of support against the demolition. I noted this is a technicality, but not all of the elevations of the building were submitted. I thought that was a part of the application requirement, as well as photos of every building nearby. Also, not all buildings are being asked to be demolished. I understand that the cottage may remain, and so I'm wondering if it needs to be renoticed for that purpose. The idea of equal discovery, David mentioned that there have been a number of investigations or visits to this property to determine its significance, but not on the part of the opposition. I would argue that an independent evaluation of the architecture and the property still needs to be made in order to determine unbiased what we're dealing with. What is there left to protect and preserve? How can we make any decision without knowing concretely what survives? Pierce's family was fully interwoven among the village's most prominent citizens and leaders. So often we assume that slave families were poor, lived in ramshackle buildings, and were ignored by others in the community. It was completely the opposite for this family, which is remarkable and noteworthy. Consider this. In 1896, just 1 year before Pierce died, Charles McDonald was paired with an African American at a golf tournament at Shinnecock. He was so upset about that he left and created National Golf Course. What does that tell you about the attitude toward African Americans around the turn of the century? And yet Gad Williams, related to Pierce, his will was witnessed by Sylvanus and Mehetabel White of the White family of 1640 of the Presbyterian Church. I'll go on and on about the architecture. I believe it was originally clad in stucco, which would have been incredibly unique for 1840, because it didn't become popular here until 1890.
The normal. So
I just want to say that you have the jurisdiction, you have the evidence, and you have the authority to deny this demolition application, and I would urge you to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Additional comments, please. Step forward.
Hello, my name is Susan Sherry Clark, and I guess, I speak from a position also. I've been working and assisting with a survey of historic resources in the town. And it's been actually ongoing for a couple years, and not just I, but a group of people. And one of my greatest fears, and I'm sure other people, is that we're going to forget a property. There's going to be an omission. And if that's omitted, 20, 30 years down the road and a demolition application comes up, it's going to be gone because of something we missed because of whatever variety of reasons. It wasn't seen, it didn't appear, the AYB was wrong. And so we live with that as we're working on ours. And I think back to when the people worked on this back in 1979. And from what I'm understanding, and that information also came from the Bicentennial Manual, there was a little section saying guarding the past. And from what they said, that in 1970 the master plan proposed the creating a historic district. And in 1979 they spent $5,000 for a survey, which I assume was a hefty amount at that time, to survey the village. And they said after years of frustration, by 1986 finally, so that's almost, 8 years later, the Historic Preservation Commission was formed. So there was an 8-year lag right there. And then 2 years later, they finally established the historic districts. So I think during that time, I would almost guess whoever was on the Historic Preservation Commission knew that properties had been missed. or possibly omitted, forgotten. But at some point, just trying to get the survey done and get the historic district, I think they would have felt that their successors, which is of course your board, because it merged, the historic preservation became your board, but they felt that there would be a way to, and I actually had the same words that Brenda, to right or wrong. So I really believe that in the spirit of the law and based on the overwhelming amount of evidence presented and submitted, I urge you to please landmark the Paris Concert House so that it may assume its rightful place in the history of the village of Southampton. And please, of course, also deny the demolition application. So I guess, based on that, I feel that is really an important thing. I think because of the years that lapsed by, that there's just got to be a way to right a wrong and to correct things. So I also have a letter. If you could please read that into the record for me, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Mr. Ford?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Robert Stroud. I'm the Executive Director of Peconic Historic Preservation, a not-for-profit organization that's committed to preserving historic buildings on the North and South Fork. We're here tonight to just simply urge you to deny any demolition permit on this property, not just from the perspectives that you've heard from others tonight, but simply you don't have enough information to rule out the significance of the historic material that's there. Whether you talk about a frieze board or you talk about a rake board or you talk about this is where the rafters lie, you really need to get in and totally examine, as you all know as professionals, what is there. So before you can possibly say, well, there's probably nothing to it, you have to at least prove to yourself that there's nothing to it. We suspect there is something to it, and that a proper evaluation and examination would yield that kind of information. So I urge you tonight not to allow this building to be demolished. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Members of the board, my name is Richard Baxter. I'm an historic restoration contractor and carpenter, and I have been for many years. I'm embarrassed to admit that up until a few weeks ago, I had no idea who Paris Concert was. And having heard the little bit I've heard recently, I find it a fascinating story. It's just wonderful, and what a tragedy it would be to lose any connection, any physical connection with him, if indeed there is a connection with this house. And I would urge the board not to allow this demolition, deny the demolition permit. Thank you.
Any more comments? Nothing further?
Good evening. My name is Georgette Greer-Key. I'm the director of Eastville Community Historical Society, and I'm also the president of the Association of Suffolk County Historical Societies. The Paris Concert Action Committee submitted also in Brender's application additional letters that we hope will be read into the record. I'd also like to say that there were a lot of people who wanted to be here tonight that could not be here. And I understand to the tone of about 80 letters were sent, faxed, emailed, sent to U.S. Postal Service to your offices. And I personally called Diane Greger, and she said that because most of the letters were not marked, please read into the record, they will not be read. But I hope that you have received the plethora of letters that have been sent in to you in your packet. I also like to note specific persons, Gaynell Stone, who is the director of the Suffolk County Archaeological Association, the Nassau County Archaeological Committee, and she said to vote against the demolition and that it is against the New York State secret preservation law that would allow you to demolish of such a historical structure without previous archaeological investigation. I have a letter on the letterhead of Mount Clair State University from Chris Matthews, who is an expert in working in these different structures and reconstructing history around African American enslaved dwellings. He said that to vote against the demolition, and he said, as I am sure you recognize, that Pirates Concert Homestead is an example of a rare, diminishing resource for understanding the importance and significance of Americans' diverse cultural history. The lives and achievements of enslaved and free people of African descent are so poorly known that every opportunity to learn more needs to be seen as a rare privilege in our lives. The discovery of this site and its preservation in total, not just the architectural facade. It is essential for the well-being of the whole community. Residents and visitors need to be able to walk through the house and grounds to gain and learn from a full experience of this place and the historical site. The decision to preserve the Pirates Concert Homestead is Southampton's chance to contribute to this important effort. I also have 3 letters here from archaeologists that are in support to not vote for the demolition of the house. Emily Button-Cambick from Brown University, Jana Wallace Copeland, and also from Allison Manafree McGovern. And you have this letter in your packet. I didn't read it in its entirety. I also
Today?
it was handed in with Brenda's application. And you have 3 other
application error.
Yeah, and then you have 3 other letters that have made it into the fold that were stamped. Okay, those are 3 different letters.
Got it.
Okay, and I wanted to just read this into the record. This is my comments, official comments, which also are.
That's inclusive of this as well?
Yes.
Okay. These came in today.
But not in its entirety. We were told that I was told by Diane Greger, myself, that there were over 50 letters that she received, and additionally, after 1 o'clock, there were another 30 letters that were received.
For the record, we don't have those in this file.
Okay.
Okay.
So then, I don't know if you could ask her where those letters are. That's why I made sure that I said it on record, that I spoke directly with her myself. We also received a letter from Mr. Robert Lewis, who is the director of Higher Ground over in East Setauket, who deals with a similar population that we do in Eastville, the African American, Native American, and European immigrants. He's also asking you not to vote for this demolition application.
Okay.
And I hope that you received that letter as well.
Who's that from again? I'm sorry.
Robert Lewis.
Robert Lewis?
From Higher Ground, East Setauket.
Okay. I don't see it right here.
Hey, can you hand me the file?
Yeah.
Please. No, the entire file.
The entire file.
I'm sorry.
Can I just see that?
Do we have those letters in copies?
Yes, and we made sure that we submitted it with Brenda's packet also.
I've got
It's a joint
Brenda's
packet. You should have a copy of it in your packet as well.
I wondered if they were extra. They weren't here yesterday.
If not, I would. No, but this was before 1 o'clock. This before they even were sent over, because I called to make sure. So we will definitely check the folder at a later date to make sure that those letters are received, because they are nearing 100 at this point.
Okay.
Letters of to not
And just
demolish.
so you understand, it's not customary of this board to just arbitrarily read any letter that doesn't request it to be read into our record. It's just like receiving a survey.
Mhm.
We don't announce that we received an additional survey or other forms of documentation for the file unless it's been asked to submit it for our record. So I just want to make sure that we understand it's not that we purposely omit it. It's just not part of our practice to do so.
Yeah, and that's understandable, but as the last meeting went, unfortunately, the common practice was not in place where that previously where we read letters that people just wanted to do something and send in letters. Unfortunately, some of them removed the please include in the record, and I'm sure you'll receive more, depending on how.
So you said we remove letters from.
No, I didn't say removed. What was on the top of the letter?
I'm sorry.
That's on the top of the letter.
Okay.
To read in the record, please read in the record, was removed from some of the letters.
Oh, it wouldn't be.
No, I'm not saying it was on your part, but that's why they didn't.
You're talking
You
about
don't
the
have
statement
them.
on the head of the
Yeah,
letter itself.
yeah,
Okay,
because
well,
people were
got it.
just
And
trying to get their support letters out for the action
you
committee.
understand that you want to keep that open for letters to still be received by the building department to be placed in this application. Is that
Can you say that again?
you want to keep open the opportunity for other letters towards this application to be put into, entered into the record through the
That
board.
is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. And I just wanted to say, the Eastville Community Historical Society is the only and oldest historical society on Long Island that focus on linking three cultures: African American, Native American, and European immigrants. We were founded in 1981 to circumvent the injustice of minority properties being purposefully ignored, left out, and blatantly disregarded as having no contributing factors in Sag Harbor. We are incorporated under the New York State Board of Regents and governed by the Board of Regents. Eastville's partial mission seeks to preserve historical buildings and maintain a true telling of the story. We are a documentation agency that has been presented with written and oral history, more specifically the history of Pirates Concert. Property of unrepresented historical minority populations like African Americans isn't likened to the same local precedent due to the fact that minority properties are often not grandiose. We are here once again to hear the property is worthless, which we do not believe. Testimony that you have heard today isn't emotional. It's as previously said. It is a sheer disgust and for the injustice and the lack of courage that has disappeared to defend doing the right thing. It has been proven over and over again, and according to the local history and landmark preservation section 65.3, section 1, value as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the locality, region, state, and nation. Okay, 51 Pond Lane is currently economically, socially significant to the local, regional, state, and national and global locale. Pirates Concert is the most celebrated black whaleman and the first black to be seen in Japan. He was born a slave and died a philanthropist. Section 2 of 65.3 states that if there is an identity that historical passages that are
I'm sorry, you're on chapter 65 of our code, correct?
Say it again.
You're on chapter
65 of your code.
The code.
Yes.
Okay. And you're in section 1.
I'm reading in section, the criteria in section 65.1 states that if there is a value as part of the cultural, political, economic, or social history of the locality, region, state, and national, and I'm giving my response that we already proved that he has the significance, that he was the most celebrated black whaleman, that he was the first black to be seen in Japan. He was born a slave and died a philanthropist, as we've stated in previous meetings. Section 2 says is identified with passages that have celebrity, public figure, or dignitary. As we stated before, these houses, the cottages, the house and the garage, and the land, and the improved land was owned and declared in his homestead as said as much, and was appraised on his probate. In section 3, and section 5 of your code 65-3, in the criteria of 5, it states that because of a unique location or single physical characteristic represents established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood. And my response to that is, it is a unique location and a visual feature. Approximately across the street from his homestead is a lasting monument that signals location of where he lived and operated the only ferry service on Agawam Lake as a black entrepreneur. I urge you to deny this application for demolition. I have outlined 3 areas out of the 5 that qualifies 51 Pond Lane as a cultural significant structure that should be preserved. Unfortunately, it has been pointed out that your purview is singular, and I beg to differ, as there is a 5 foci that you must follow, and I am asking you to do just that. Honor the code in its entirety as it is before you. We cannot go back from this point. You have a serious task before you. Please open your minds and hearts to the truth of the matter and reject outside threats of the well-to-do folks and people of influence. This issue is bigger than them, you, and me.
We've really extended help.
But there was a couple of interruptions as well,
I
right?
understand. That's the reason why we gave a whole lot of leeway, but we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further discussion? Please step forward.
My name is Bill Chaliff. I'm of Chaliff and Rogers Architects in Watermill. And we worked on the oldest farmhouse in New York State, which was the Downs Farmhouse on Wickapog. We've done the restoration of the LVIS Lionel Gardner residence in Main Street in East Hampton. I've consulted with Zach Studenroth on the Sag Harbor Whaling Museum building. 3 points. Number one, apparently there were reviews. We don't know that this building ever really came up for review in 79, 99, so forth. Is there ever a time when such a designation is comfortable for the person who owns the property? It probably never is. On the other hand, is that a determinant for making a decision to change the zoning of the, or designate the building a landmark status? And that
Changing
usually,
the zoning, please.
we're not changing the zoning, but making
Don't give us
determination.
that responsibility. We
I
have
stand
enough.
corrected. I'm sorry. But designating it as with landmark status, I don't. It's the comfort of the owner is not a determining factor in making that decision. Number two, I believe that the site alone is of historic significance. If Pyrrhus Conctor had this residence and had his own history and was in the middle of Kansas someplace, it still wouldn't diminish his accomplishments. But the fact that this person lived and worked out of the village of Southampton, where many people have lived who helped shape the world and stood shoulder to shoulder equal with them, is of tremendous significance. And I think that right in the village, in a prestigious location, such as near the waterfront of Agawam, is different than, again, if his residence had been in Noyak or some other section of the region. So I think moving the building would be a mistake. I think that, again, the designation of landmark status is conferred greatly because of the actual location of where this person lived and worked. And finally, and this you may consider this a stretch, but my particular expertise in history is working with green buildings and understanding and lobbying for the building of green buildings. And I bring this up because earlier this evening, the board was heard to happily endorse a green project that was in front of it for review. Green building is not just the green
and the
building.
applicant's right behind you, and she's been waiting patiently all this time. She doesn't even
Very
realize
good.
she's been approved.
All right, very good.
Hey, Bill.
But a green building is not just the building. And if you look at the manuals and that are issued by the U.S. Green Building Council, which remains in the forefront of many different agencies that rate and select and create the criteria for what a green building is, they actually have designation of for neighborhood status that is conferred on a single building, that building contributes to or enhances the quality of the neighborhood. And that's what all buildings do. All buildings really are just the armature for the social landscape. And that is the true value of the record of the conferring of landmark status on any building, that it speaks to the history of the people, which is really all we have. Just like each of you, all you have is your name, is your reputation and your own history. That is your value. The value of the community is built house by house, stone by stone, with buildings and histories such as those of Pyrrhus Concert. Thank you very much. I urge you, of course, to deny the application for demolition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments? There are comments, so I know there's rebuttal from you. It seems there's more comments. Please.
Mackie Finnerty, Southampton Village. A number of issues. I know you've been working on this for a long time, but it seems the evidence tonight has been, without any doubt, about what a famous historic man this is. And it's hard to think of anybody more historic in our village. When I first moved here, I went to a lecture and a walk at the Historical Museum, and they told the story of him. And I tell that story to my children, to my grandchildren, and to all my guests in the summer. I show them the plaque because I think it's such an interesting story. I don't talk about anybody else in Southampton historically, but him. He's just an amazing person. So I think we need to preserve him and his memory and as much of his building as we possibly can. The fact that he owned that seems to be established beyond any reasonable doubt here whatsoever with the documentation that was presented here tonight. Also, several of your speakers have asked, and it's so reasonable, to allow an outside person to come in and truly evaluate the building within all the confines of all the laws that were discussed here tonight. But what is historic that's left in that building? Nobody has been allowed inside to look at that. And it seems that you can't really make a decision because the inside and the outside of all buildings are integrated. You can't say this board is just on the outside.
Have to.
Well, I guess there's some controversy about whether that's so or not.
There is
but
obviously some controversy
Yeah.
whether we should or should not. Unfortunately, as the code stands today, not to say what it will in the future, but as of today, our purview is on the exterior of the home. So I want to make sure that for record purposes, we would love to be able to go into a lot of homes in Southampton Village and tear back some of the layers to see what's going on. But as of today, that's not something that we are able to do.
But from what I understand about the law tonight, that this law has to be integrated with the law of the historic importance of the building as defined by who lives there. And if you look on a national level, the National Park Service owns literally thousands of buildings. Many of them belong to presidents, but many of them belong to somebody you never would know anything about. But they were significant for something they did. The regular person,
That's
the small
different from
person.
looking interior.
You're
referring to the association.
Right, but the concept of preserving buildings because of what happened there and who lived there is without any doubt, both locally and nationally. Also, I think it is a very difficult situation, and so I was interested in compromises. You know, once somebody would be allowed to come in, and I can't imagine why the owners would object to that. Is there any part of this that can be severed? Is there any part of the land? Because we really should memorialize his existence in the area where he is. Can something be worked out between the two parties? As I said, a piece of it, a building on the land that we know something about, that he might have had some significance with, but we know he's connected to the land. The plaque there tells you the village can't have it both ways, telling everybody what a great historical figure he is to impress Japan, and at the same time say, no, we don't think so, and that he didn't live there when the sign says he did live there. So I don't know how that even got into dispute. But sometimes things have to be moved within close quarters. And I thought about the land that the village owns right across the pond, which is still completely associated with Agawam, and would still associate with the ferry service he had, and so on. And I thought that, given the law here as you see it, that maybe there are some other ways out, that if the two parties get together and that we can comply with all the laws and the intent. And you've heard tonight the significance this is to a very significant portion of our community, and what an area of great pride it is. And so I think that everything should be done here to preserve that and make sure that they are able to continue to honor him in the way that's appropriate for what this man has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Mr. Chairman, who are the parties here besides the applicant? Is it the Village of Southampton, or is it this board?
I don't know what you're referring to. What is your question?
The commenter referred to the parties and a compromise between the parties. or
I'm
among the
assuming she
parties.
means the applicant and those that are in opposition of the applicant's request.
Is it an organized, is it one group? I'm just trying to figure out.
Don't know, and it's not really an interest of the board to determine whether there is a initiative against.
Got it.
I'm sure there's rebuttal.
We've gotten extraordinarily far afield of what this application is about. Number one, it's an application by my client for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the structure. It is not an application to landmark, so that cannot be a consideration of that board. It is not before you tonight, and that has to be understood. Secondly, you're guided by a code, and that code has specific rules and laws that you have to follow. And I ask you tonight, all of the evidence presented tonight is not applicable to this specific application and its very narrow application to the code. And I ask you to do that. It is private property. No one can go on this property, much like I can't go on any of your property or any of the opponent's property, nor can you come on mine without my permission. With respect to the conversation on the inside, again, not your jurisdiction. That's our private property and our private materials. There's been some suggestion of independent investigation. In your packet, you'll see the deed. We bought this property in July of 2013. It was investigated by the village 4-5 times prior to our purchase. My client did the due diligence and bought this property in good faith for $2.75 million. And there's a lot of cavalier comments about what we should do with our private property. I said it at the last meeting, and I'll repeat it again. If anybody would like to buy this property, it is for sale because my clients want a graceful, reasonable way out of this. If the village wants to buy it, please. We've asked them. We've been rebuffed. My client should not be the party responsible to preserve this property. There's a preservation effort, come and buy it, but the law is clear on this fact that individual people should not borne the responsibility that should be the government's. Again, the certificate of appropriateness to demolish, not a landmark application. We have not been.
Just wanted to comment with regards to your statement, just for the record. You're absolutely correct. This is not an application for a landmark. However, this board does have the jurisdiction to, if we chose to, deny the certificate of appropriateness and then assert our authority to landmark the property. So I want you to understand, well, you made a comment. I have to make sure that on record it's properly stated that we do have the authority to do so, and therefore go through with the proper proceedings and designation.
I understand that, but I never said that you did or didn't have any jurisdiction with respect to landmark. I talked about what was before this board in this application,
Just want to make sure that we're
and
clear.
solely that. And it's very narrow. It is very narrow. It's a certificate of appropriateness, and you have to consider that under the narrowness of your code. Whatever else happens, that's what you have to do. This is the third time that this application has been on. There's a significant amount of evidence in the record. We ask that it be closed and you give us a decision as soon as possible. Carrying a $2.75 million property is not a inexpensive thing to do. We've been open and reasonable about adjournments, but it's time for this to end. It's enough. Enough is enough.
Are you requesting that this board make a decision?
Yes.
Anything further? Yeah. Anything further from the public?
I just had to rebut some of the things that Mr. Gilmartin was saying. I had a question. I want to know specifically if the code that he's referring to that is so narrow, do you have it? And if you do, can you give me the section or read it into the minutes for me? I want to hear it because I want to know what code is he talking about?
You would have to read. Well, you're asking me to comment on his comments.
Okay, I won't ask you to comment on his comments. What I'm asking the board is the narrow focus code that he is referring to, that you only have purview to the exterior. Can you tell me that code, or can council read that code? Because I want to know if that code is encompassing of the 65.3.
Bear with me 1 second. Someone's phone's ringing. This board really needs cell phones to be turned off. With regards to reading any additional code, I don't know which code he's referring to. If you want to ask him personally to do so, he could do so, but this board is not going to.
Okay, so then great.
The assumption.
No, I don't want you to make any assumptions, but I just wanted to know, because I want to know what code. So is it not in the board's
Are you
purview?
asking the applicant to be specific with?
I would really want, the reason why I'm asking is because we have something that says that not only the architectural structure integrity that he's talking about, what about the historical fabric that, even if it's one fascia or snowboard, whatever, what code does that fall under? I want to know what narrow code he's talking about, because if he can't tell me, you can't refer to him, can you tell me from yourself or from the board's?
This board's responsibility and purview is in the exterior portions of the property and its historical significance, of course. We look at the intent, we look at any architecture which is germane, either historic or built from someone who is of historic nature, or if the property is associated with someone of historical significance.
So that's all, and that's everything that in
When it comes to designation.
to designation. But what about the purview for the? Well, I could say it off the back. This application is not appropriate. I'm not a board member, of course, but the application is not appropriate because it should not be demolished. Period. The house should not be demolished. But in reference to the appropriateness of this application, can you tell me what code or what's your responsibility according to the appropriateness of this application to demolish?
No, I can't.
I'm not asking for opinion. I'm talking about your purview in regards to deeming this building appropriate or non-appropriate.
No, you're asking us to make a decision.
No. I'm asking, and either way, what's both positions? Usually, if it's what would deem this building appropriate, what would deem this building non-appropriate? That's what I'm asking. Or in this application, I want to know the code that has been referred to time and time again that I have not seen that just says you have a single focus, which is the exterior.
Chapter
65. So from myself tonight, we read.
Chapter 65, 1, 2, and 3.
But a chapter is a chapter. So text chapter 65. So it's encompassance of all of the chapter 65 and not just 65-1. It's encompassing of chapter 65-1, 2, and 3, and all of the others that may or may not be in the code. Am I correct or not?
To my knowledge, you are.
Okay, because it's been said over and over again that you have one purview and the one jurisdiction to the exterior.
And it's been rebutted by the chair every single time.
Okay.
That's been said.
Thank you, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm not.
I mean,
okay,
I understand.
because I'm hearing something else.
I think this board has been very reactive whenever anything is said that we felt was not accurate, and we were very proactive in making sure that we clarified that for the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you did do a good job. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something because it's been said in the beginning, it's been said in the rebuttal, so I just wanted to make sure that I am not missing something. I am extremely exhausted, and so I just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing something because it's been reiterated over and over again that you only have one purview. And from what I've seen, I'm not a lawyer, but I do have common sense and read on the 8th grade level or above, and I understand the code to be encompassing of more than just one singular purview.
Yes, and we've obviously have attacked that.
Thank you.
You've got that point.
Sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt.
You have to step forward because we can't
One second,
gather
David.
any of the information from your full
I'm
record.
so sorry. I was late because
Your
there was a lot of
application has been
traffic.
approved for pending a written decision.
Okay, thank you so
No,
much.
I'm sorry. Your application has not been approved.
Thank you.
It has been adjourned for written decision. The consensus of the board is to approve. So you don't
Unanimously.
have to sit here and listen.
Okay,
You
if
can
you have
go
any
home.
questions for me, I drove 6 hours to come here.
No,
I'm
that's
happy to
okay,
answer
but it was
any
worth the
can-
wait, I'm sure.
questions. All right, well, thank you. Sorry about that.
Stick around.
Just for clarification purposes, my references were to Chapter 65-4 and 65-5, which are entitled Certificate of Appropriateness Required, which the action that we're contemplating, we need a certificate of appropriateness, and 65-5 is the criteria for approval of certificate of appropriateness. And all my comments were in that context.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Counselor, anything further? Board members, anything further?
Nope.
Any further public comment? Okay. applicant is asking for this board to make a decision?
Correct. That's what he said.
Okay. Per the applicant's request, motion to adjourn for written decision by council.
Do you want to poll the board?
I just did that. You said you had no comments.
You want to poll it one more time?
Is there a comment that you have?
Yeah, sure.
Continue.
There's a lot of information that's been given in, especially today, that's been handed in, including yours, Brenda, this package that you have here. I'd like to study it a little bit more, although I'm pretty confident where I stand on this application, which is I would be against the demolition, clearly, of this structure, based on the information that has come in and has been presented to us. However, with that, I would still like to spend a little bit more time, at least until our next meeting, in reviewing some of the documents and reviewing a lot of the letters which are still to come in, I believe, that haven't or are not in the file at this time because of logistical reasons.
Anything further? Any comments?
I would like to defer to council for written decision.
Christine?
I agree.
Brian?
I'm ready.
Right. Okay. We have a member who asked and requests for additional time to review. So we have to at least, we obviously have a consensus of the boards whether we feel that we want to honor that time or whether we feel confident in the decision as it rendered.
I don't need any more time. I think I have plenty of information to make a decision.
I would like to have some time to read this.
Yes.
I think time is going to help everybody, whether to review all the information, wait for
Curtis, you're
additional.
just adjourning it for a decision. You don't have to adjourn it to a specific date.
The board's not saying for a decision. The board's saying that they wanted more additional time.
Correct. If you're adjourning it now for decision only, you don't have to adjourn it for a specific date. You can just adjourn it until you have a decision.
Adjourn it and close it for all
Correct.
purposes.
Close it for the record, subject to decision.
Okay. Nothing further from the public as we do so. Step forward.
Just for clarification, so the record will be closed, anyone that sent in letters today, and they will not be considered in the record if it's closed tonight?
Any additional letters received after tonight would not.
Okay, what about
Any letters mailed prior today will be received in the record. Anything electronically or by fax after tonight will not.
Okay, but even the letters that were sent, email, fax, and sent in that did not have across the top, please read into the record. You have, Diane Greger has those letters. Will they?
I haven't made a comment on that this evening, but there is a distinction between having a letter read into the record and it being part of the record. All letters received are part of the record.
Okay.
It's a redundancy to have them read. As a courtesy, this board usually does read them, but it's not necessary. They're part of the record.
Okay, that was my question. Are they going to be part of the
They are
record
part of the
because
record.
you are closing it tonight? That was my final question. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you.
I would just ask, out of respect for the applicant, we've kept it open for a long time, that you get us a decision as quickly as possible. Either way, yes or no, but get it to us as quickly as possible.
Understood. This evening, you're asking this board to at least close for all purposes and adjourn for written decision.
So the applicant is requesting?
After consulting with council, correct?
That closing it for...
Closing it for all purposes, adjourning it for a written decision by council after conference with council.
Just asking you to do that as quickly as possible.
We're going to try our very best. Motion to close the application for all purposes and adjourn for written decision by council.
Okay, I make the motion that we close the application of David and Sylvia Hermer at 51 Pond Lane for all purposes and defer to our council for a written decision.
And adjourn for written decision by
For
council.
written decision by council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, next section is public hearings and non-historic.
Clear the room.
Clear the room. Yeah. Just give them a moment.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You got it. We'll share it. On your way out, if you guys can close the doors to keep the heat in, please.
My feet are frozen.
Noise out.
Can you see Jasper Rose?
Okay, next application, please. I'm sorry, first application, non-historic.
This application is Jasper Rose LLC, 60 Halsey Street, to amend a prior ARB approval for an accessory garage.
Is the applicant present? Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the application of Jasper Road LLC at 60 Horsey Street until our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert and Karen Kelly, 263 Little Plains Road, for driveway gates.
Charles Regensburg for the applicant.
Percentage of transparency?
Yes, the last time I was in front of the board requested a survey to make sure that we had the right setbacks. We have completed that, and I believe it should be in your packet.
Ham, questions?
I don't think they're as, frankly, as transparent as they could be.
I also have photos.
See them a little more open.
Christine?
Let me see. What was the spacing?
I'm sorry?
What is the spacing?
4 inches.
It's 4 inches. You don't think that's enough?
I'm sorry, I couldn't see it from down there, Mr.
It's
Chair.
4 inches.
4 inches, and what's the size of the vertical member?
Inch and a quarter.
Okay, then I'm fine with it. I don't have any issues. The panelization's solid up to what, 3 feet or 2.5 feet?
2.5 feet.
Got it. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the driveway gates for Robert and Karen Kelly at 263 Little Plains Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill and Sharon Jacob, 52 Bishop's Lane.
Is the applicant present? Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the application of Bill and Sharon Jacob at 52 Bishop's Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Application is Mark and Carrie Fermentino, 39 Adams Lane, construct 2-story single-family dwelling. Attached garage. There is a letter directed, wants to be read into the record, but it's not very clear. Leave it at that.
Aye.
Are we reading this into the record?
It was asked. We have to follow the guidelines.
Mr. Chairman, I've read this letter. This is from a chronic complainant of the board. The letter actually characterizes itself as a protest against an illegal application, and I think that that's a fair characterization of the text of the letter. I've written it verbatim, read it verbatim, and my recommendation is that it be stricken from the record, as it doesn't make any comment as to the architectural significance or issues regarding the application.
Okay. We were instructed by counsel. Proceed. The last meeting.
Last meeting, we presented the house, and the board had objection to the rear balconies. So I went back to the owner, and they were cognizant of the fact that there is concern about privacy, but they also felt that it is an integral part of the design, and they asked me to present to the board a consideration for accepting the balcony with some minor considerations as far as privacy on either side of the lot. So here is a...
I'm sorry. You said that you were presenting...
Well, the objection is the vantage point from the balcony to the either side of the property,
Sure.
into the neighbors' yards. So we're proposing that there be some evergreens or cedar trees on either side that blocks the viewpoint.
What is the height?
Is that bush?
Yeah, these two.
I need the height, please.
The height?
Yes.
Well, the height would be approximately 14 feet.
So you're proposing 14-foot evergreen
cedar trees
Cedar
or
tree.
evergreens on either side.
Okay.
I think those are true.
And the,
For everybody to do that.
Brian, any comments?
You know, if we're going to base it on landscaping, I think I'd like to see where the houses on either side are located, and we don't have that information.
Christine?
So,
Yeah, I think we need, historically, this is not something that we approve. And we don't often base it that close in the village on landscaping because that sometimes can be removed or not stay permanent. So I would like to look at the situation on either side.
Esther?
I think I need to make a site visit to the property. I agree with Christine that plants die, and it can be a problem.
Pam?
again, what is the distance to the side yard that you have?
Well, the closest side yard is 20.
On the second floor, sorry.
It's 20
The balcony.
feet. Pardon?
The balcony.
The balcony? The height?
It's from the railing, if you will, of the post. to the
It's
balcony.
approximately 23 feet.
So you're 23 feet away and you're, with the person's head, you're 20 feet in the air.
Uh,
Yeah, I would
approximately
like to see a
16,
landscaping
17
plan.
feet.
I'd like to visit the site. It's a tight neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I'd like to visit
The
site.
challenge with your
I'd like to
argument
see
is that
landscape.
we've set, and I think we set a pretty concrete standard over privacy challenges, especially in new construction, being sensitive for existing properties. And it only takes one to set an additional precedent. We want to make sure that we're sensitive to, obviously, the neighbors who are on both opposing sides, as well as, obviously, your own privacy as well. So, line of sight, even on I'm sorry, you say 13 foot?
The size of the...
I'm sorry, the trees.
They're approximately 14 feet.
14 feet. As stated by other board members, they've died in past. We've received letters and complaints that it wasn't done. It was not complete. Position was, as much as we would say that it would work, it unfortunately still proposes an additional plan, an additional challenge. So we want to be sensitive to make sure that we make the right decision going forward.
Now,
it seems it's the consensus of the board to do so as well.
Is the objection to seeing the buildings or the people in the yards?
Well, people entertaining their own backyards, of course.
So, I mean, if someone bought the property next to them and, built something else, it's hard. I mean, evaluating where the building is now is probably, can change also. So,
I don't understand what you're.
In other words, where the buildings are now could change, 6 months from
We're
now.
only basing this on what exists today. Future things obviously could happen. You could have a brother or sister or family member who live next door who would not mind. You could also have someone who very much minds. We have to base on the information now as it could propose a privacy issue.
So now my client was also cognizant of the fact that, we wanted to get something approved soon, and the other option was to have a balcony built into the building.
Recessed?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that something that still would be?
I think that's one of the requests that the board initially.
Because I do have a drawing showing that.
I thought you would.
Would you like to see it?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry. Do you have something for the board to see?
I only have these two drawings, but then can I have them up?
We could take a look at it, but
Yeah.
for the application to be complete, we'll see two plans. We have two sets.
I don't have two sets here, but.
Okay. Just letting you know, even if we were to review it, are you asking this to be a part of the file or just
Yes.
review for now?
Yes, just a.
Yes, stamp it.
Thank you. There's a plan and an elevation.
Actually, nice.
And you can see in the plan, in order to make the balcony deep enough to actually use, it have to be, we could only go in about 3 feet, and there's 2 feet of it that would extend out, just so you can put a chair out there.
Better. Ham?
I actually like it. I think it's sensitive. I would like to see still, however, a landscaping plan on that side. You're only 14 feet off on the first floor, and you're about 23 feet or 24 feet on the second floor.
Okay.
You can still stand out on the edge, but I'm actually not totally against balconies on all applications at all, but with the pyramid, with the side yard setback here, you're very close. I like the fact that you're, as an applicant, that you've set this back in and made it very submissive, so.
Esther?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think I'd still like to do a site visit. I'd like to see a full landscape plan and then have a chance to review it.
Christine?
Yeah, I agree.
Brian? Right direction, seems that the consensus of the board, the recess is something that's acceptable. Landscape plan is not something that has never, obviously, it's been asked and requested in prior times. Plus the fact we would need 2 sets of plans for the application to be complete as well.
Okay.
What we're really concerned with in the landscape plan is the screening plan on both neighboring properties.
So from an aesthetic standpoint, the recess seems to be fine for this board.
So in addition to that, we need the landscape plan. Okay.
And what is the distance on the protrusion of this balcony? Do you have that dimension?
It's about 2 feet.
Okay, you should probably also give us the dimensions on here,
Okay.
please.
Anything further?
So it's going to be presented at the next meeting?
Yes.
But you've entered this in the record for the time being, the one copy, correct?
Pardon?
You entered one, we just need an
Entered one
additional,
copy in.
Indicate the dimensions of the,
On the new
opposite
set.
structures and landscape plan. But from an aesthetic standpoint, the recessed deck seems to be acceptable.
Okay.
Any public comment? Anything further from the board?
No,
Okay.
just the landscape plan will give the height of the trees and the type.
With the heights of trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'm
to-
sorry.
You're asking?
You're asking this board
Oh,
to adjourn
sorry.
the application. I know, procedurally, we have to make sure we follow procedure. You're asking this board to adjourn.
To adjourn, yes.
Okay. Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn the application of Malcolm Carey Ferentino at 39 Adams Lane to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next application, please.
Next application, Mr. Chair, is Kenneth Cisco, 14 Meadow Grass Court, excuse me, for two-story addition.
Mark Nadoff, agent for Kenneth and Natalie Cisco. We're turning a 3-bedroom into a 4-bedroom, which includes a first and second story addition, 10 feet by 18 feet 6 inches.
Brian, comments?
No, I think it's fine.
Christine?
No, it's fine.
Stamp.
I looked at it in the building.
You have the stamp, please? Esther?
I took a look at it yesterday. I think it looks fine.
Pam?
I'm okay.
Have no objection. Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Kenneth Cisco at 14 Meadowgrass Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Next application is James Street LLC, 7 James Street, construction of new house, garage, and pool house.
I need to recuse myself.
Is that 45 Moses?
No. 7 James Street.
The applicant present?
stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, Yolanda. Okay.
You like the flag there, or do you want to move it over?
No, I'm fine.
You good?
My name is Violanda
Makes
Franzisian.
it very imposing.
Put the other one over
It's
here.
very presidential with the flags and everything.
Hi, I'm Violanda Franzisi. I'm a project architect for Brian Brady.
Excuse me. Unfortunately, we're unable to hear the applicant. So, thank you.
I'm a project architect for Brian Brady, and Brian Brady is the architect for this project. I handed out some renderings for you to take a look at. The property is a corner lot of about a half acre located on James Street and Herrick Road, just off South Main Street. It's heavily screened from the neighbors on three sides with existing hedges and trees. The neighborhood has a mix of traditional homes and very large homes that were recently built on the east side of James and the south side of Herrick. The home is designed in a classic village. It's a classic village home, and the front is facing Herrick Road.
Did you change the design because the rendering is different from your color rendering?
The rendering is what we're proposing. Yeah, the columns
The
are a little
columns
bit-
are different.
Yes,
Different.
yes. The rendering is what we're.
So this is what you're
yes,
proposing,
that is-
not what we
Yes.
see.
This one. Yes.
Okay.
We changed the columns.
Better.
and-
Much
yes,
better.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I see the copies of it? No, you have enough.
Dimensions
Take
are
a look
still
at
the
this.
same?
It's totally
Yes,
different.
the
Okay.
dimensions, everything stays
40
the
feet
same.
on one side,
Yes.
70 feet on the other?
Yes,
saying,
yes,
okay.
that
Okay.
didn't change. It's just the facade that changed.
Got it.
Uh,
No
the-
Oh, you don't know
dimensional.
what you were in for.
The house will have painted white shingles and black shutters and natural cedar roof. The fireplace will be Danish blend brick.
Okay.
Is the Widow's Walk accessible?
No,
I
No,
would hope not.
just decorative.
just decorative.
Jeez.
Yes.
Unless you're 12.
And then will we get corrected
Yes.
plans?
Yes.
Okay.
Pam, you don't have any questions about the brick? I know you're very.
No, the Danish blend is actually something I'd like to see in the range. I just like brick more so than stucco or other materials. The house is 40 feet wide by 70 feet on the primary side. I like to break up with the pilasters. I'm fine with
Christine?
I just want to be sure I understand. So this is the front that goes
Yes,
on Herrick
that
Road.
is. Yes, it is.
And do you want the survey?
Survey's
I
on
have
the
a
front
survey
page.
on the front.
Front page.
Okay.
Anything further?
No.
Esther?
If it's this, I'm fine with it.
That's what it is.
Excuse me, sir, please. Will we be able to see the plans that will mimic what you're proposing? Unfortunately, the plans are still the old ones.
Oh,
So
you
we'll
said
need the
what?
revised plans to show.
Okay, it's just the columns that really changed.
Well, the
Do you-
columns.
There's
Okay.
very
There's a-
important.
Okay,
There's a reason why, unfortunately, and we can't show favoritism from one
That's fine.
application to another.
that's fine.
So we appreciate it. Thank you. Any public comment on the
Just
application?
one question. The columns that are on A-301, are those correctly shown?
The plans have not been updated.
They haven't been
No,
updated.
they have
No,
not
so
been
we need
updated.
updated plans that go with this.
Okay.
Okay.
Any public comment? So you're requesting this board adjourn the application so you can make the alterations?
You can't vote on it without the revised. Okay, then I guess that's what we'll have to do.
You are a licensed architect in
Yes.
New York, correct?
Yes, I am.
Ham,
We need-
we need
You
new
wanna-
plans,
we
Ham.
need-
We
You want new
the
plans because of the elevation?
We need-
Yeah.
For merited reasons, we would need the,
Very well.
Okay.
I wasn't here in the last meeting, so.
no, it's okay.
Okay.
Just don't want to make sure that there's no hint of impropriety.
Okay, that's fine.
Motion to adjourn, I'm sorry, motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant James Street LLC request to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application, please.
Beach Street Development, 54 Lee Avenue, construction two-story dwelling with attached, garage and accessory pool house. So we just need updated plans on this, is that it? Okay.
Hi, I'm John Himmelsbach, architect, representing the builders for 54 Lee Avenue. We were here last meeting, and we adjourned the meeting to have the board members get a chance, and the other members, to take a look at the plans and the elevations, and also to visit the site.
No changes, correct?
No changes. What I did, though, not that I want to enter my iPad into thing. If anyone has any, interest in looking at a similar style home with the shingles,
I don't want to handle it over the thing. Yeah, if you could pass it.
if anyone, there's a few pictures. There's very similar in character. I did a rendering which is not as it's helpful. But
Wait a
not
minute.
as-
Ham is going into your photos, so I wanted to
Is this your
stop him
sister?
before he sees something he shouldn't.
That's your sister?
Can you
I got
please?
5 sisters.
No,
So.
could you, could
I
you
really don't want
please
to look through your
give that
iPad.
back, please?
Okay. Seriously.
If there was any questions on aesthetic or color, but that's what it was. It was the same as last time. And didn't know if the board had a chance to visit the site and see the adjoining
I
properties.
didn't, but
Could-
from what I
could
see
I
on
have
the
a look at that?
application, I'm fine. I just have a question on your chimney, though, and on your entry.
Yes.
Okay. The elliptical entry that you have right now, as it appears on your plan versus what you're putting in front of us,
If you could hold that up, please.
you can hold that up.
The rendering is it's a half circle stone alcove.
Okay,
before
so
the
it's
porch.
recessed then?
Yes.
You can see
It's
that.
set back.
up there. Okay, fine.
It's just,
Is that the
little
same thing?
characters.
What they're- That's the
Would you mind
color
just
rendering.
kind of
I
passing that around?
think there was one we left, but might not be up there anymore.
Someone said the files disappear. I don't agree with that, though.
I did visit this site, and I don't see this fitting into the neighborhood.
What are your challenges? Is it the entryway? Is it the
I think
gable?
it's a
Is it-
very elaborate and complex style.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I went to the site as well, and the street has a lot of old farmhouses on it, and I'm having trouble with the busyness of this with the turret, and I don't think the stone's appropriate. I think we don't see a lot of that stone here in the village, so I just have some challenges with
It's
the
not
overall-
absence, though. I mean, the village does have certain, we have allowed, as a matter of fact, certain structures with, but the stone that's being introduced here. So it's not that this is an original.
No, I know. I think
material.
it's the big arch out of stone.
I would tend to agree that it's a little bit busy. That's sort of the word that comes to mind. If there would be a way of simplifying the entrance, and also the roof line there's a lot going on there.
Somehow, these don't go together.
And I think the rear of the house actually is a lot simpler than the front of the house, if that's any. It's just a lot cleaner.
Why is the turret there, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's a design element that goes off. It's a back, area.
Was that a
back
request of the
staircase.
applicant, or it just sounded a?
Yeah, it was a design element. It's something, in these pictures, there's another version of that
We're
in
not gonna
here,
go back to the
but-
pictures now.
that it was from.
Ham, comments?
I'd like to get a little more familiar with the site, actually. But,
I mean, if, I'd like to, not to interrupt Ham, if the suggestion is that the stone, we would be happy to just do a shingled entry alcove like that and, bring back those drawings when Ham gets a chance to take a look at the property.
Listen, I think you've got one board member who clearly thinks it's too busy. I'm beginning to think that too. I just need to have a little more time on this.
I do
But-
think the,
I have one question.
Sorry
On
about that.
landscape, do you have a landscape plan for this house?
I don't, no. No, we don't.
Okay.
Are you saying that there's privacy issues?
No, I'm just asking, and then the other question that you had, is what is the turret for exactly? Is that a stair tower?
Yes.
Or- Okay. And would you be willing to examine the turret and maybe come up with something a little bit more subtle?
Absolutely. I'm going to say no to the board.
Yeah, you could.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, how big is the lot?
It is just over half an acre.
And what's the square
feels,
footage? Sorry.
it feels massive. I mean,
It's long and linear. We actually got approval from the ZBA. We have all our clearances.
I don't have any issue with the stone. I think the turret throws it all off, just think because of all the oscillations of the roof and the sloping. You have a question?
Hi.
Oh, you must be the builder.
Last week.
Your name for the record, sir.
Michael White.
All right.
Last week when we were here, the only problem was the entrance, was the stone. And that was the sticking point. And I'm willing to take the stone off the front entrance. I mean, I'm not really.
I don't think that was the sticking point. I believe that each board member said they needed to take a look at this and go back to the neighborhood and get a better idea of the makeup of the community, especially considering photos weren't a part of the file, which usually should be a part of the file. We won't mention that omission.
Right.
Okay, but with seeing that some of us had the opportunity to go into the community and review it, and we're saying that based on that, they think it's a little busy. One board member is saying that unfortunately he didn't have the opportunity really to go back and wishes to do so. All board members still have question about the busyness of the front facade. I questioned the turret. Ham asked, could it be a little more simplified? That's where we are now.
Let me just
As a
go back.
recap.
First time I saw these plans, Mr. Chair, was the first thing I noticed was the elliptical archway in the front and the type of materials and so forth. So I agree with you, with a couple of you guys on that. The turret, I think, is completely out of character. I'd like to see an alternate for that. And I'm asking for a landscape plan because this is a tight lot with a long house.
It's 3/4 of an acre.
Doesn't matter. I want to see the site.
Well, and there's
I know you
huge
guys do a
landscape in
decent.
there.
I know you guys do a decent house and all that, but this is on a major north-south street in the village, and it's in a very it's in the gateway almost for Village Lee Avenue.
Yeah, there's a lot of street frontage on that,
Yeah.
and then the other road comes right into it. so-
Let's make sure everyone leaves here with the idea of what's going on. The turret, any issues, comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, I just think it's busy, and I think that the turret is the culprit.
Christine?
Yes, I think that the front facade, putting context for this.
We're doing one at a time,
All
not the
right.
entire, just
Turret
so that we know where
and
our problems are.
entryway.
Okay, you're saying turret and entryway.
Mhm.
Entryway.
Right.
Turret and entryway.
turret and entryway.
I have no problems with the entryway turret.
What's wrong with the entryway?
I just said I didn't have a
No, I mean,
I think the shingle would certainly be helpful. I think it would be a good alternative to the stone. It would help simplify it.
yeah, that's fine.
That would be very helpful.
You've offered
I agree
that.
with that.
Right.
No, I agree with the.
And then,
stone point.
so then we're down, I think, to the turret.
And the landscape plan.
He's asking for a landscape plan. If you have an issue, do you need a landscape plan?
I'd like to see what they're putting on the front of this because it's a very prominent site.
Christine,
I agree.
do you have a landscape plan in mind?
Yeah, we were just putting
At the
privet
end.
hedge in
You
front.
put, what I'm saying is, do you have a natural rendering for your landscape plan already prepared?
I will get one.
Okay.
There's our problems.
Good.
All right. All right.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
You want this back?
So at this point, you're asking the board to adjourn for
Sure.
our next meeting.
Thank you.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant Beach Street Development on Lee Avenue request to adjourn to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you lose it? It's on my notes.
Put it in yours.
Next
Next up.
application, David and Eve Montegiardo, 184 Meeting House Lane.
Hi, Lisa Zaloga, architect for Dave and Eve.
Then we have to go back on.
That's all right. That's what it is.
Lisa, is there a reason I should recuse from this? I was involved in this and giving some advice. I'm going to step aside on this one.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay?
I mean, you haven't even.
No. But still.
Fine.
Okay.
Is this new information? It's in the file, but I was giving up, there was only 2 in the file, so I was giving up so everybody
These
had.
just came in, right? They weren't there yesterday.
Yeah, I think you got there before I did.
What year we went?
I
We were there.
didn't see this yesterday.
I also had some pictures of just, there were pictures in the file of the house and the neighbors, but I just took some more pictures of the house to the east that you guys were questioning me about. At the last meeting, you asked to see a streetscape regarding the property, our property at 184 Meeting House Lane and the property to the east. So I got information on the property to the east, and this is an accurate representation of the existing house. And the existing house is a 3-story house, pre-existing
How
non-conforming.
high are you
Doesn't meet the
increasing?
pyramid law.
It doesn't meet the pyramid law.
Right.
And those windows, those 3rd floor windows are looking over the property, and so actually our new 3rd floor windows are further away.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Brian, comments?
No, I was fine with it the last time. I think it's fine.
Christine?
Fine.
Esther?
No, I like it.
I have no issue. Public comment. Any public comment? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of David and Eve Mongiardo at 184 Meeting House Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good day.
Okay, hold on a second. Are you postponed?
Mm-hmm.
She's not here.
Back just in time.
The screen prints in the back, basically.
Right.
Next application, please.
Richard Gormley, 65 Post Crossing.
I need to recuse myself.
We're still on this one. This has to go in with Meeting House. And this is, we're done with these.
Thank you.
Piling up.
Property is a single lot of about 0.45 of an acre, located on Post Crossing in the center of the village. It's heavily screened from the neighbors on 2 sides. We have existing hedges and trees. We're proposing a very modest renovation that impact the rear of the house. The kitchen we're increasing by 50 square feet. We're also proposing a new screened-in porch and a pergola that will be added on the back of the house. And on the rear side, also on the back of the house, is a porte cochere. That's about it. Do you have questions?
So we're looking really at the east and the north elevations where there's additions.
Sheet 8A6. The north elevation is basically the back of the house.
Mhm.
And it's the pergola and the screened-in
Screened-in
porch.
porch.
And then that porch.
And the porte cochere. And the pergola at the very back behind the pool?
Yes.
Christine, comments?
No, I think
Esther?
I think it's very tastefully done. Pam?
This is across the street from my mother's house. Looks great. Would be a good addition to the neighborhood.
I didn't know where you were going with that. Any public comment? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Richard Gormley at number 65 Post Crossing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good luck. In here. Some going in there already.
So what do we do?
It's going in the pile.
Gregory
Next.
H. Finch, 176 Elm.
Good evening, Jose Jimenez from Southampton Engineering for the owners.
Wait, could you hold on for a second? Council, previous application had a certificate of appropriateness, but it's not in a historic district. I'm wondering, is that, and it was stamped.
That's on the file.
65.
Post Cross.
Crossing.
Is it?
You saying it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there, very much so.
Then
Yeah.
we should not have approved,
You know, it should have been listed in the historic district.
and it wasn't.
application. So therefore, you acted without your jurisdiction. So therefore,
Counsel,
you need a
can you prepare a
motion
written
to
decision?
reopen the
Let's reopen.
application and refer it to the historic schedule of your agenda.
Motion to reopen application.
1 second, you're gonna have to,
Did you just make a motion?
you go ahead, please.
Make a motion that we reopen the application of Richard Gormley at 65 Post Crossing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn for written decision by council.
I make a motion that we,
No,
Why?
you haven't advertised it as historic.
You sure we hasn't?
Let's look in the file, see if
Was?
there's, yeah, it's,
I'm almost positive, since we.
Well, let's make sure, because if you haven't, then you have to do that.
we've got the affidavit of posting and the affidavit of mailing.
Did one of the board members forget to look and see where it was on the agenda?
I looked at it right across the street.
I didn't think.
You gonna put it our responsibility to do so?
No, I'm referring to
Okay.
one of the board members.
Okay.
Juice myself.
You recused yourself, you didn't absolve yourself.
yeah, we have an affidavit of proof.
I paid for the certificate of appropriateness.
I can't remember what appears in the
So,
in the
Yes.
press.
Well-
What does it say?
We're supposed to have a building.
Hmm?
Have an application.
Historic district, yes.
That it was advertised that way?
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
Motion to.
So no, motion to change the, relocate the application on the agenda to the historic district and close the meeting for all purposes, subject to written decision. Got to put it on the historic part of the agenda.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we relocate the application of Richard Gormley at 65 Post Crossing on the agenda to the historic district.
Second.
And close
Meeting for all
the
purposes,
meeting
subject
for
to
all
written
purposes
decision.
for a written decision by our council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good one.
I'm sorry about that.
So that just means I have to wait. Next meeting.
Yeah.
Correct.
I saw it, but
No,
I
not
didn't think
Brenda.
anything of it.
Diane.
Yeah.
Back on the application of Gregory H. Fitch, we want to reopen that, Mr. Chair.
Application's open, you announced it.
176 Elm Street, for construction of two-story single-family dwelling, pool house, and garage.
Good evening again, Jose Jimenez from Southampton Engineering for the client. We're proposing a new house on this 176 that's corner with Peltros. Two-story house, small garage, pool house combination.
Is there an extra mini set down there? Thank you.
Must be the stair.
So I have a silly question. What's on this property now?
This is a one-story house.
One-story house. And what you have on your site diagram, you have proposed house.
Correct.
Within that
Yeah,
house.
and no, that's existing house to be demo.
So you're
we have
you're
a second
demolishing the existing
a separate
house.
application for demolition.
Okay. And this is just outside the historic district? Zach? But not too far out, or is it in?
It's pretty far up the street.
About 300 feet or so from Post Crossing?
It's,
More than that, I'm
a
sorry, it's
whole
almost a
block.
quarter of a mile, yeah. Okay.
Natural wood shingles.
So let's go back to the house that you're taking down there. Do you have photographs of it?
Yes, it should be photographs on
Okay. That's a separate application?
for the demolition. Yes.
This is that house that has the ramp.
Right, on the corner.
What was the age of the house?
I'm not familiar with the existing house. It's not in the historic district.
I understand.
It's
If the age triggers any type of evaluation based on...
Nothing was...
It's in a contiguous area, though.
You know what the age of the house is?
We're not exactly sure.
You have a photograph?
This is the house you started removing the trees.
Correct.
Bulbing the trees. It's worth a look.
Yeah,
We're at the stop sign.
yeah,
It's the one with the metal railings on the
yeah,
front.
I think I did a looking for them myself
No?
May I see it?
about 6 months ago. I did.
No relevance?
For the village?
I think you're right. I think there's a report.
Those demo reports have to measure an individual house against each of the 5 criteria for individual landmark. So in that context, you're not looking at placing a house like this within the context of a historic district. You have to place that building against each of the 5 criteria for individual landmarking, which is a pretty high bar. It's a pretty high standard. And so we have encountered this before with Pond Lane. So that's a house that has had alterations and is not architecturally distinguished.
Was this a two-family house?
Single
It's kind
family
of a
residence.
Sears type bungalow.
Sears type.
All right.
On the east side of Elm? Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
9 foot
It's
bed.
got the signs on it that says it's coming down.
I would say. Brian, comments?
Yeah. On the front elevation, Elm Street's a real important street. It's got a lot of great houses on it. The columns, I think I'd like to see more detail on them, or a base or something. I mean,
Okay.
just the way it's drawn now, it just
Doesn't
looks like
show,
it's
yeah.
a stick.
Absolutely.
And I don't see any eave details or rake details or anything in here, and I think it's important to understand all of that.
Okay.
So I'd like to see that. I do have an issue with the transom over the front door.
Okay.
I think, maybe if you put some divided lights in it would help it. I think just having a big open clear span
Yep.
over the door doesn't work too well. On the right-hand side, is
What
that
elevation?
on the front elevation? It looks like there's a column on the end. Is that just a window recessed that sticks out a little bit, or?
On the first floor?
No, first and
All the
second.
way up.
All the way up. That's if you.
I looked at the plan and I couldn't sort of understand it. You have 2 proposed
Know
left
what you're talking about?
elevations, by the way.
It's a. If you look at the floor plan, you have a little bump out on the left-hand side. It goes all the way up.
That's it. So
Bedroom number 4.
recess is back.
Yeah, it recesses back. and goes all the way up.
So what happens with the roof there? It just
it's,
comes out
it's
flush
right
with
under
it?
the existing overhang, or the proposed overhang.
So the recesses are underneath the freeze board?
And the freeze board, no, the recess goes. If you look at the first floor, on the second floor plan, actually, first floor and second
Stay
floor.
on the first floor for a second.
Yeah.
On the front door, you have the main door and you have two side lights, and then what's the next object to the right and left? The north and south of the front door.
One of them must be the wedding.
Windows.
Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
If you can go to 7.
Correct.
Which is where I'm on.
And then you go to 8. You have 2 proposed left elevations.
That's a mistake. The one on 8 it should be right elevation.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, 8 is right?
The right elevation, the
Be
one at
best
the
if
bottom.
we always look towards north, south,
North,
east, and
south,
west so
okay.
that we could determine location.
The location, okay.
Alright. So, number 8 is right.
No, two different elevations.
Well, that's why I say there's one, they both say left, that doesn't really
That's what you're saying. Anyway, going back to the street.
Correct.
On page 7. Right? Okay, on the first floor, the entry door, and then you have twin side lights. Brian was referring to the transom light over the top, which doesn't look...
front door, yeah.
I'm just confused about what's on either side of the...
No.
Either side of what?
That's a column. That's the
Right,
reset,
but
that's the
are they,
house
is
being-
it recessed? Is there a column there? It appears as if your AutoCAD program went kind of amok here. Because I'm not sure whether you have columns to the right of the of the door system, the entry system, or whether that's a
Yeah,
recess
there's one column.
with a...
There's one column to each side of the entry. I mean, but on the front porch, on the front of the porch.
On the front porch.
You see, it
There are
doesn't-
4
it
columns,
doesn't
correct?
look
4
like a
columns.
porch.
It doesn't
Correct.
look like, it doesn't appear as a porch. There's no depth. How deep is the porch on the front?
The porch is the deepest part is 8 feet. It's 6 feet on the shower.
It doesn't show, and Brian, I agree with you, the roof line on the front, the hip on the right and left, how it relates is sort of a step back there, but it's really unclear.
Yeah.
As we're going up to the second floor. The left elevation, it feels very odd, the return on the center tower above that service door in the back on the second floor where you have the returns coming in.
Correct.
It looks like they want to run into the pair of mulled 4/1 windows. It's just something strange there. I don't know whether we can get a detail, but I would like a detail of the
Yeah.
front entry
Okay.
area and the
Absolutely.
relationship with the porch to the front entry, and more importantly, the relationship of the columns and the step backs, if you will, with
Absolutely.
the hip roof on the front.
Okay.
And when you're referring to the front, you're referring to Elm Street, correct?
Correct.
And you're referring, the elevation that you're referring to, as Chair said on sheet 8, I'm assuming, which elevation is facing Teletro?
That's the left side elevation
Okay,
on
so-
page 7.
That elevation, you have a stair tower that appears to have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Pelletro would be the right, not the left.
I think you need
Left.
to
You
relabel.
really need to
This is-
relabel that.
Pelletro's
This
to your
is
left.
extremely
Yeah,
confusing.
Pelletro is the left. If you're looking at the house from now. Yeah.
But in
That's
any
the reason
case,
why I like north-south.
Yeah, correct.
We try to reference.
Absolutely.
bless you. In any case, besides the labeling, I just think on that elevation where you have 3, 6, 9, 12, I kind of lose count. This whole,
Do you have the technology to put a little more depth into the elevation?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I would.
Yeah, and we'll revisit also.
It would be
we'll revisit
recommended that you at least
the
try
elevations
to
as well.
again,
put a little more depth.
a three-dimensional model of this application, since it's a corner house, I think is pretty much a solid win for us when we're looking at public right-of-way houses that are on the corner. And this one's screaming for it.
Okay.
Esther, any comments?
The relabeling is
Yes,
important, better AutoCAD. I have an issue with the kind of shrubbery that's going to screen these cars in the front yard.
Front. Okay.
You're talking about Elm Street side?
I am talking about the Elm Street side.
Right.
You're showing parking for 2 cars there.
Correct.
And then parking for at least 1 car, possibly more if there are guests. It really has to, it's very important that we have a very good landscape plan there.
Absolutely.
And also on page 8, those windows are just incredibly busy. And yeah. And there's
On
somehow.
the right elevation, you mean, right?
It's listed as the...
Yeah.
Yes, this
The one that's
this one.
the
Absolutely.
person right
It's
elevation.
very, very busy.
Yeah.
Any further?
Just curiosity, which side is actually your legal front yard on this corner lot?
The front, we're calling the front on Elm. I mean,
Okay.
you can choose your
And you're allowed to park cars on the front
front.
lawn of the front side
Yes.
of the house?
I mean, 10 feet away from the property line.
I don't think so.
Yes, we are
Yes.
now.
Pre-existing?
Yeah.
You have to show your landscape.
Yeah, you have to
So you're asking landscape on
I'm asking for a serious landscape plan.
a serious landscape?
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to look like a parking lot.
And screening as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Christine, anything further?
No, I mean, we've all said the same thing.
Any public comment on the application? Please step forward. There's public comment, sir.
I am Connie Cornish. I'm a neighbor. I would just have 2 comments. My sense is from talking to the building inspectors that the size of the garage is over what is accepted as being the legal limit. It's 530 square feet suggested, and the building department suggested that the maximum should be
You said the
520.
building department said that the garage is out of compliance?
They suggested that they thought it was too big, that it would be an exception.
Are any variances required for this? I'm asking
Connie,
the
we'll ask the applicant, just 1 second.
We have 500 variances.
Are any required based on, or have you been told by the building department that a variance is required for this?
No.
You have not. You're saying that you had a conversation with the building inspector, but he told you and not the applicant.
They were surprised to see that it was 530, that it should have been 520, that was a surprise.
Okay, they would have to notify us. We go under the assumption that every application. that
So
comes-
I'm just here to
Hang
bring
on
it
for
up.
1 sec. Okay, we have to go under the assumption that every application that comes before this board fits every building permit, doesn't require any variance, and if there are any variances required, it will be labeled and filed for either a pending application for approval. As of right now, that is not a part of that application here in the file, so we have to go under the assumption, unless you're stating otherwise and able to obviously prove the case, and the building inspector would, or building department would have to inform us of that.
So that's why I came for public opinion. It's the first opportunity I've had.
Just
Thank
letting you know what the procedure is, so that I understand
So
you've
what
come
should
here.
I do?
You should, if you feel that that's the case, then that would have to go into the building department, who is the enforcery board, department, who basically will render whether this is, or make a decision whether this is obviously within compliance or not. And then they inform this board, or inform the applicant that he must apply for a variance.
Fine.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And I would just say the screening on the front should just be aware of the fact that there are a lot of pedestrians and bikers, and that the setback be adequate for visual sightlines at that intersection, because we have an intersection at Woolley that's quite dangerous because of the hedge on the corner. And you can't see when cars come in and bikes are going. It's a blind spot.
Yes.
So I would just take that into
You're
consideration.
concerned about both faces, the Elm Street
Yeah,
and the
absolutely. It's a very high traffic with all of the restaurants and all of the parking and all of the events. It's a very high trafficked, very walked, very dark, very late at night, not such a, safe corner.
Understood.
Yeah, and people often miss the sign altogether and just drive at 30 or 40 miles an hour straight through it.
I've seen that too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Any additional public comment? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Lavinio, 168 Elm Street. I was at the building department and spoke with Ken, and that the garage is somewhat over in square feet, okay? Next thing I want to do mention that Elm Street is really a very busy street. Even though the stop sign is there and there's a stop sign on Pelletreau, at the intersection there, we can almost start to pay off the national debt for people who don't stop on the stop sign there. Let's see, also too, I noticed on the plan when I was speaking to the building inspector, is that there should be, or the most likely have to be, some arrangements for pool fencing. Because we do have grandchildren there.
Yep.
And also to, is there any way they could look into laying out the main parking on Pelletreau Street rather than on Elm Street and backing out like we have to do on 168, as that's such a busy street?
Prefer it.
Pardon?
I would prefer it.
Yeah, I would too, because I tell you, it's
Street, and I
they
would
go.
like to see the report of losing this, or not losing this house, but the value of that house
Okay,
very much.
I can
Because
only-
My office, as you know, is down
Yeah,
at
I
the
know.
end,
Yeah, I know. I see
of
you go by when I'm out
280
there
Elm
too.
Street. And, but the bottom line is that I also have interest in the house at Post Crossing, but that, I go down that street every day, as you know.
I know. Yeah,
But it's and you know.
It's
Curtis,
busy.
The neighborhood, you
Yeah.
guys all know, the neighborhood
Yeah.
is very, very,
it's very busy.
right on the edge of the historic district, and we've made a lot of decisions over the years to be very,
Yeah.
proactive with looking at screening and parking and so forth.
And also too on the adjoining property to Lavinia, which, okay, let me just bring up another section. The original house was Halsey, and then it became Rogers, their daughter's house. So the house, Rogers' house, is approximately, I would say, at least 125 years old, because Janet Halsey Rogers lived there as a little girl with her parents and family. And she was telling me one time that the 168 Elm Street house that my parents live in and I live in was built probably about 100 years ago, from what she told me. And I would like to see more screening along the south side of the property that adjoins the Lavinia residence. Okay, where our driveway exists now, but the new driveway for this home here would be almost parallel for a while. But we really need a good screening there. Something that's it'll be green all the time, deciduous.
Steve, are you to the south?
Yeah, we're to the southeast.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, south
So
and east, right?
Your
Correct.
driveway would be parallel with the proposed new driveway?
With the proposed parking driveway that they have there off Elm Street, correct? Yeah.
I'd like to make a site visit, I think, and see
Yeah,
what
me
that
too.
looks like.
I would too, even though we drive by it every day.
Yeah, I know. You really don't pay too much attention because you just go by. But now it's going to be another driveway on Elm Street. It's
I
going to
actually
give
stop at the
another
stop sign.
Good
Yeah,
for you.
stop.
Okay,
Stop
because we've
sign,
sat out on the porch and laughed at the people go by. But I think that's an important subject to be addressed, and also the landscaping.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Steve.
You're welcome.
You've heard all of the
I did.
testimony.
I did.
And also some of the dialogue of the board.
Absolutely.
So you have work to do.
Okay.
Any comments?
No.
Any more additional public comment? So you're asking this board to adjourn so that you can...
Yes, I am.
Before we adjourn, would you be willing to consider relocating the driveway coming in off Pellet Road?
We'll talk to the owner, but absolutely, that's
Thank you. That would
that's
be
doable.
very helpful.
We'll try that.
Thank you.
Curiosity, is there a chimney on this building?
No, it's a beltless chimney. So there's a chimney on the building, but it doesn't go through the roof all the way up to the roof.
There's no roof penetration of a
No,
chimney
there's
anywhere?
not.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant Gregory H. Fitch at 176 Elm Street, request to adjourn to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next application, please.
Old Town Development, 9 Old Town
This is
Lane.
the first house in that development.
Is the applicant present? Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn the application of Old Town Development LLC at Old Town Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next application, please.
Southampton Follies, 24 Johnny Lane. Great name, Will.
Good evening. Will Schultz, architect, representing Southampton Follies LLC. On their application for a one-car garage and a cabana in the rear yard of the property.
How high is the structure?
15. This is the existing, the photos I put in the file show the existing house on Johnny Lane, and this is the view up the driveway. So you can see the properties right there.
Do you want to enter those in, Will?
They're in.
They're in?
These are those copies to show you. So what you see from the street would just be a sliver of the one-car garage. So maybe about a third of it from the street.
Brian, comments?
No, I think it's appropriate.
Christine?
No, I think it's perfectly fine.
Pam?
It's appropriate.
Good. Esther?
It's lovely.
Any public comments on the application? Motion to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the application of Southampton Follies LLC, number 24 Johnny Lane. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
45 Moses Lane LLC, for construction of a new two-story single-family dwelling, detached garage and accessory cottage and pool house. The applicant present?
I'm sorry, just dumped over.
That's all right, that's all right, that's all right.
Hi.
Name for the record, please.
Joseph Cerami, architect.
Proceed.
It's a single-family house with a detached garage and a pool house that has a cottage that was approved by, we got a variance on, so. The house will be shingle style with a shingle roof, all white trim. Has a covered porch in the front and in the back. And here again, we're proposing a balcony, so.
I'm sorry?
Here again, there's a balcony in the back of the house.
The entire extent of the back house.
Correct.
Not just a balcony, it's a dance floor.
Do you have an alternate for your balcony?
Pardon?
Do you have any alternates for the balcony?
For the balcony? Well, I think the same alternate as previously was proposed would be
I don't have any issues
an
with the
option.
house other than all the balconies and seeing something with that.
One question I do have, I know the board objects to the balcony because of the intrusion to the neighbors. What would you propose as an option to?
That wouldn't be my only objection.
Pardon?
That would not be my only objection. If you're in the middle of a potato field, I think you need to analyze it a little bit better. The balcony itself is how long? The
That
railing?
balcony?
The railing.
No balcony, just windows, not doors. That's
But-
what we normally suggest.
Right.
Well,
but
the
how long
extent
is the-
of balcony there, it actually, it invites entertainment. And that means there people are going to be congregating, entertaining at the top or second level. In which case, you will cause an intrusion on your neighbors, absolutely. There will be a privacy issue. There's one thing where the previous applicant made an alteration for recessed decking, where you're enjoying, obviously, the view of your pool of your backyard, and there's not a line of sight for neighbors to be intruded on. In this situation, you're actually inviting people to obviously use and access the second story deck. So, to answer your question shortly, the alternate to that would be non-accessible and non-usable.
But the recessed balcony, as proposed previously, would be an acceptable
Without all the
alternate.
railing, limiting the amount of railing and accessibility is something we would take in consideration based on what you designed and bring before us.
Okay.
The run of railing on the second floor right now is how far, how long? 60 feet?
It's probably the width of the house, which
What
is
is
about
the width of
60
the house?
feet.
About 60 feet, right?
It's
Okay.
huge.
It's, so it's not just the balcony and the privacy, it's also the mass of it, size of it.
This is the porch.
I know, but-
Let's start with an alternative on the drawing first, because, the throwaways, the old days of throwing,
Anything further, Brian?
better off having an alternate.
Christine?
No, but we don't have any photographs in the file of the surrounding neighborhood houses.
No.
right?
Yeah, the
Do you have an
application's not
issue with
complete.
the design of the house where you feel that the current aesthetics as proposed may in fact be non-keeping with the community overall?
Are you saying, do I agree with the decks?
No, not the decks. I'm saying the aesthetics of the house, the streetscape of the house. Do you feel that the design as proposed is questionable, whether it's in keeping with the overall streetscape of the community?
Well, I'm finding it hard to make a decision on that because I don't see any photographs with the surrounding houses.
So you're saying that this could
Yeah.
potentially have an issue or impact with the community?
Yeah.
I'd like to see the
Esther?
site.
I would like to see some photographs, certainly. And it's a very large house on 3/4 of an acre, .83.
Is this an empty lot?
No, there are buildings there that are being torn down.
We would need to see those.
The buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That are being torn down?
Yeah.
Do you have a checklist of the application
Yeah.
requirements?
There's an ARB checklist that shows all the data. I'd like to also see a detail on the eyebrow window, if I may, as well. Besides the different alternates you're giving us for the railing, but I'd like to see photographs of the property
He would
and
have his own.
also your landscape plan, proposed landscape plan.
I would.
Sorry, I didn't
I
mean to
would-
interrupt.
Listen, I would strongly suggest that you go and go back through the checklist, some of the requirements per a complete application.
No, I had the checklist, but the house is being torn down. That's there.
Understood. What we would
You
need
want to see the houses adjoining?
Yes.
Part of that checklist
And across
is
the street.
the homes
The
as
picture
well as a
was there.
streetscape of the overall environment. Now that's the have we in past now, because I want to make sure the record understands and reference that. Have we allowed applications to go through without having those photos? Yes, we have, but those are homes that are a little that aren't as
Rarely.
questionable in terms of size, dimensions, features, and style. They're saying here that this is a situation
And
where
mass.
I said mass. This is a situation where we would need a little bit more evidence to make it and rule a decision.
Okay.
You have any questions?
No.
Any public comment? Yes, step forward, please.
Sorry.
Your name for the record, please.
My name is Dr. Edward Powers. The evening is late. I have the property at 56 and 64 Moses Lane. And I've owned and maintained that property since 1977. This may not be the proper venue for this question, but there's been an explosion of housing back in that area. And I have my concerns about school children, school buses, and the people using that as a transit from Montauk Highway over to Old Montauk Highway.
You're
And I'm-
correct. This is not the venue, unfortunately. I understand what your challenge is, and the village is growing.
That would be to the trustees, sir.
to institute
We're sensitive to this
safeguards for the
But
children in the street.
Village trustees would have to obviously
Okay.
address that issue.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Anything further from the board?
No.
You're requesting that this board adjourn the application so you can make the necessary
Yes.
completion of the application. Okay. Motion to adjourn. I'm sorry. Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn 45 Moses Lane LLC to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. What's left are the minutes from October 9th and the 23rd. All members except for Ham. Ham is not here on the 23rd, correct?
Here on the 9th.
I was not here.
I'm sorry? Okay.
We
No-
can vote on the 9th.
Well, no, that's not true. We can vote on all. Yeah.
Okay.
You weren't here on the 9th? You were not here on the 9th?
I wasn't.
You were sick. So we have a forum. Motion to approve the minutes from October 9th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from October 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the minutes from October 23rd.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from October 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion to close November 13th, 2013 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review in Historic
I
Preservation.
make a motion that we close the meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation on November the 13th, 2013.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.